All right, let's talk about the headlines that broke the internet last week. Verstappen signs with Mercedes. Max leaves Red Bull. 2026 bombshell deal. And honestly, I don't blame anyone for freaking out. Because when you see Verstappen and Mercedes in the same sentence, your brain immediately goes to one place. He's ditching Red Bull for the silver arrows. But here's the thing, and this is why you need to stick around for this whole video. Those headlines weren't telling you the full story. Not even close. Because Max Verstappen isn't leaving Red Bull. He's not jumping ship from the team that gave him 4 world championships. His contract runs until 2028, and as far as anyone knows, he's happy right where he is. So, what's actually happening here? Well, it's way more interesting than a simple driver swap. It's about what Max is building outside of Formula One. It's about his relationships with teams and manufacturers that could matter down the line. And honestly, it's a masterclass in keeping your options open while dominating the sport. What's really going on? The GT3 story. Verstappen Racing, Max's own team, not him as a driver, announced a multi-year deal with Mercedes-AMG for GT3 racing, not Formula One. They're switching to Mercedes-AMG GT3 machinery for the GT World Challenge Europe starting in 2026. Max personally tested the Mercedes GT3 car at Estoril before his team committed, giving it his stamp of approval. He's serious about GT racing. In September, Max has his eyes on the legendary Nürburgring 24 Hours. He wants to race there as a driver in 2026, piloting one of these Mercedes GT3 machines. While everyone's panicking about F1 contracts, Max is quietly building a motorsport empire beyond Grand Prix racing. He's becoming a team owner, competing in endurance events, and setting himself up for an exciting post-F1 career. The sim racing connection. Nobody's talking about now. Here's a part of this story that I find absolutely fascinating, and almost nobody's covering it. Remember that NLS9 race at the Nürburgring Nordschleife that Max won in September? His co-driver was Chris Lulham, and Lulham is a sim racing convert. Think about that for a second. Max Verstappen, one of the greatest F1 drivers of his generation and a legendary sim racer himself, is not just hiring traditional racing talent. He's bringing in guys who proved themselves virtually first. And Lulham isn't going anywhere. He's continuing with Verstappen Racing's Mercedes program going forward. This tells you something really important about Max's vision for the future of motorsport. He understands that the traditional path, karting from age 6, climbing the ladder through junior formulas, isn't the only way anymore. Sim racing is producing real talent, and Max is smart enough to tap into that pool. It's personal for him too. Max has always been open about how much he loves sim racing. He streams on Twitch, he competes in virtual endurance events, and he's genuinely passionate about it. So building a team that reflects that identity, that's not just business, that's Max putting his stamp on racing culture. The irony that's actually genius. Max Verstappen's GT team partnering with Mercedes, the same team whose F1 dynasty he ended in 2021, seems odd, but it's brilliant strategy. Max is building relationships with Mercedes in a completely different racing series, creating zero conflict with his Red Bull contract. This matters because 2026 brings F1's biggest technical reset. New power units, new chassis rules. Red Bull is building their first in-house engine with Ford. Will Max leave Red Bull? Probably not. His contract runs through 2028 and he's happy there. But is it coincidental he's strengthening Mercedes ties before massive regulation changes? Absolutely not. Smart drivers don't put all eggs in one basket. They build networks and keep doors open. If Red Bull's 2026 engine becomes a disaster, a real possibility with such sweeping changes, Max has already spent years working with Mercedes. It's not necessarily a backup plan. It's just smart business at motorsport's highest level. The FIA gala drama now. Let's switch gears to the other Verstappen story dominating headlines. The FIA prize-giving gala. Every year, the FIA holds this formal event in Rwanda where they celebrate champions. It's mandatory for the top 3 drivers to attend. This year, 4-time world champion Max Verstappen didn't show up. The official reason? He had the flu. But here's the context. Days before the gala, Max called the mandatory attendance nonsense in an interview. He said if it was optional, he wouldn't go, questioning why exhausted drivers should fly to Africa for a corporate ceremony. So when he missed the event due to illness, the timing raised eyebrows. Max had just been at Red Bull's factory for meetings, clearly well enough to work. Then suddenly, flu symptoms right before Rwanda? You can see why people are skeptical about whether it was really just unfortunate timing, the FIA relationship problem. But there's more context you need to understand here. Max's relationship with the FIA, particularly with FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem, hasn't exactly been smooth lately. Remember Singapore? Max got penalized for swearing during a press conference. Not during the race on team radio where emotions run high, during a formal media session. The FIA came down on him with community service, which Max and a lot of people in the paddock thought was ridiculous. There's been tension there. And when you have tension with the governing body, and then you publicly call their mandatory gala nonsense, and then you conveniently get sick right before you'd have to attend, well, people are going to talk. For comparison, Lewis Hamilton was fined €50,000 for missing the 2021 gala. That was right after the controversial Abu Dhabi finale, where he lost the championship to Max in heartbreaking fashion. Lewis skipped the ceremony, and the FIA hit him with a massive fine. So there's precedent here. Missing the gala isn't just a casual no-show. There are real consequences. Whether Max will face similar penalties remains to be seen. But the FIA has shown they take this stuff seriously. What this all really means. So let's step back and look at the bigger picture of both these stories, because they actually tell us a lot about who Max Verstappen is as a person and as a competitor. The Mercedes GT deal shows us a driver who's thinking way beyond his current F1 contract. He's building a business, developing talent, and creating opportunities for himself in motorsport that don't depend on being the fastest guy on a Sunday afternoon. That's mature. That's smart. The FIA gala situation shows us a driver who's not afraid to speak his mind, even when it puts him at odds with the sport's governing body. He called it nonsense, and then, conveniently or not, he didn't have to attend. Whether you think he faked being sick or just got unlucky with timing, it shows he's willing to push boundaries. And both of these stories together, they paint a picture of a 4-time world champion who's operating on his own terms. He's not just a racing driver anymore. He's a brand, a team owner, and someone who's building leverage in multiple areas of motorsport simultaneously. Red Bull should be paying attention. Mercedes probably already is. Because Max Verstappen isn't just thinking about winning races in 2025, he's thinking about what his motorsport empire looks like in 2030 and beyond. So here's where we are. Max has signed a multi-year Mercedes deal that has nothing to do with Formula One, but everything to do with his future. He's building relationships, keeping options open, and investing in GT racing in a serious way. And he skipped the FIA gala under circumstances that are, let's say, conveniently timed. What happens next? Does the FIA fine him like they did Lewis? Does the Mercedes GT relationship become something more when 2026 regulations hit? Does Max's team become a major player in endurance racing? We'll have to wait and see. But one thing's for sure, Max Verstappen is playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, and that Mercedes deal might look a lot more significant a few years from now than it does today.